What's up everyone, RyFX here. Welcome to my video on the best streaming and recording settings in OBS Multiplatform. First you want to start off by going to Profile, New, and then name your profile whatever. I just name mine YouTube because that's where my recordings go and I stream there sometimes. And I also have different streaming profiles because sometimes I like to run different instances of OBS. As you can see, I have two OBS windows here. This one's kind of cut off. And sometimes for my streaming, I'd like to have this window. And then for recording, I like to have this window showing certain things. For my recordings, I usually just have it bare bones. But for streaming, I usually have like my logo at the side, or I have, you know how you have some streamers with the pop-ups that will show who's following and all that stuff. I'll just have that showing just for my stream OBS multi-platform instance. I have a video on how to do that and all that stuff. And now you want to go to advanced audio properties. Make sure you have this set up. For one, make sure you have it all checked so it could pick up all your audio devices. Now for the other tracks, you want to make sure you have just one of them checked for each. So then for your recordings, when you're editing your video, say like in Adobe Premiere, once you drag that video there, it will show all these audio tracks. And with this, you could adjust like your game volumes or and your mic volume. Say maybe the game's too loud or your mic is too low, then you could use this to adjust that volume, which is really cool. This is the main reason why I use OBS Multiplatform. And now go to Settings, and then go to thanks Xbox, your stream type and service that you're going to use and all that stuff. Just using YouTube live gaming here. Anyways, go to Output after that, and then when I was explaining about the audio track being number one, you could only choose one of these. So since you want your mic and game audio and all that stuff, it's going to smash it all into one here. Now for encoding, go to X264. For your bit rate, which I'm going to explain later, this looks the best for your amount of bit rate. In comparison to all the others, this just looks the best. So I highly recommend X264. And then click Enforce Streaming Service Encoding Settings. And we're going to skip this real quick. And now the bit rate. For Twitch and Hitbox, the max bit rate is 3500 kilobits per second. And for YouTube Live Gaming, the max is 9000. At 9000, you could easily hit 1080p 60 frames per second, where you probably don't have to rescale the output at all. For Twitch and Hitbox, 3500 is not enough to do 1080p 60 frames per second. So you're going to have to choose either doing 720p 60 frames per second or 1080p 30 frames per second if you're maxing out the bitrate of 3500. Now this also means that you're going to need to do a speedtest.net test of your upload speed. Don't pay attention to your download speed. Yes, that's important for other things, but for this, you need to pay attention to your upload speed. Now for mine, it shows up as 12 megabits per second every time I do a speed test, and 1 megabit per second equals 1000 kilobits per second. So in this case, if I wanted to use all of it, I could use 12,000. I could have it at a 12,000 bit rate like this. But since YouTube, Twitch, and Hitbox have a cap, I have to set it to either 9,000 for YouTube Live Gaming or 3,500. But YouTube Live Gaming has a source button, so they could adjust to what they want real easily. So they could use the resolution they want at the bitrate they pretty much want. But for Hitbox and Twitch, they don't have a source button unless you're partnered with them. That's the only problem with them. So you kind of have to think about your viewers first when using Twitch and Hitbox. So I highly recommend at a bit rate of 2,000 or 2,500 when you're starting off. So I think that's a good bit rate to get some viewers in there. Of course, it does depend on your content too. So be sure to make some good content. So yeah, make sure your upload speed can go up to this, or if it's higher than this, pay attention to that. Now for the rest of this, your keyframe interval, you want to be at 2, and for UCBR you want this checked, and then for profile you want it high. All streaming services so far that I've seen want it set like this, so make sure you have those. Now for CPU usage present, I have mine set to very fast, but if you're doing something low motion, very fast is good. At 720p is pretty much good, or 1080p. But if you're doing something high motion, you kind of want it to look as great as possible. So more CPU usage will have a better looking stream. So if you're doing something fast motion like Call of Duty or Halo or something like that, you kind of want to go a little bit higher to faster or fast. That's if you have the CPU to do that. I usually like to have some headroom, and I usually post my videos on my YouTube gaming channel anyway, so I just have it set to very fast, so then I have some CPU headroom, because you don't really want your CPU to be at 70% constantly. It's just not a good idea, because you never know when something's just gonna download it in the background or anything like that. Now for recording, just standard, and then choose your recording path so you can find that recorded video. And then recording format, I have it set for MP4. It looks good to me. I have no problems with it. It seems to function with everything I throw to it, or have it thrown to, rather. And then for audio track, I have all those checked, like I was showing earlier, at the advanced audio settings. This will having it all checked. When I go to my editing program, it'll show all these audio tracks. And then for the encoder, I have it set to my graphics card encoder. I use AMD, so that's what I have it set to offload my CPU usage. It's a good idea to use your graphics card encoder even if you're using NVIDIA, for instance, or you're using QuickSync. The reason I'm not using X264, like I was saying earlier, it would look really good, is because for this, we're going to be using like a variable bit rate, so it'll be adjusting, giving us a lower file size in the end, and a really good looking video. And you really don't want to have two X264 encoders going at the same time, just swallowing your CPU. You really want to separate what's going on in your CPU and your GPU, just to help offload what's going on here and there, because two brains are better than one. So yeah. Now for profile, have it set to high. Oh, rescale output, I just leave it alone. And then for profile, I have it set to high. Keyframe interval, I have it set to 2. And for rate control, I have it set for CBR. And then for bit rate, I know you're wondering, like, what the heck? Again, this is going at a variable bit rate. This is going to go from 1,000 to maybe 50,000. It's just going to adjust what's going on in the screen. Like my Xbox here in settings, since nothing's really happening, it's probably going to be going at a 2,000 bit rate, or maybe 1,000. It's going to be really low, keeping that CPU usage low and that file usage low. It'll just use the bit rate that it needs. And then I have this checked, use custom buffer size. I have it set to 0. And then you need to click advance, and all of these should be default except for maximum QP. You want to set this to 20. I believe the default was 40 or 50 maybe, and I could not get these settings to work. I was using these settings for AMD VCE on the original OBS, and I could not get these to work. But once you set this to 20, it should work just fine, and you have a crystal clear video. It'll look just amazing. Now, the rest of these, since I am recording, I just have my bitrate all the way up to audio bitrate to 320 for all my tracks. So I have a nice sounding recording. Then for audio, this depends on really your computer. I could go up to 48 kilohertz and it sounds amazing to me. So that's what I have it set to. But this depends on your desktop audio. Now for channels, I don't know why you would go mono unless you're using like some crazy old gaming system or something. But have this checked for stereo. And then your gaming device, I just have it default. And then I have my mics and all that stuff. Now for video, if you're doing a game console, the max is 1080p. So you want your base canvas resolution to be this. But if you're recording something on a PC, you could go higher than this if you have a computer and monitor that goes higher, obviously. Now for output scale resolution, I just keep it the same. Then for downscale filter, I have it this one. I don't even know how to say that, but yeah, this one looks the best. And then for common frames per second, I have it set to 60, but this depends on what game you're playing. Just do a quick Google search of the game you're playing and then say 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second question mark, and it will tell you. You'll find whatever frames per second that it's going at. This will also help with keeping a low file size and CPU usage. If you're going at 30 frames, you're gonna have a lower CPU usage and file size. But if you're going 60 frames, yeah, you're gonna have a larger file size. But this will be going at what the game is meant to be shown and all that. So be aware of that. And the rest, yeah, this is pretty much all default from here on. So that's the best streaming and recording settings in OBS Multiplatform. I just want to say that even if you have the same CPU I do, which is a 4690K Intel quad-core processor, it still may not function like what I had on screen the same. It's just really you testing it out. Everyone's computer is different. Even if you have the same exact build, it's just not going to work correctly. Sometimes it's just the way it is. Sometimes it depends on what software you have and all that stuff. What's going on in the background of that computer, really, it does depend. So yeah, just kind of play around, tweak it a little bit. I tried to give some knowledge on what this does and everything. So hopefully this does help you out in getting everything set up. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch y'all next time. Alright, bye-bye.
If you enjoyed that video, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You have 5 seconds to comply. 4, 3, 2, 1.